Great. Thanks so much. Welcome everybody to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Friday, January 9th, and we are continuing our practice of making sure the bill sponsors have at least a few minutes to introduce us to their bill as soon as it lands in our committee. So we've had a number of new bills referred to our committee, and we are going to start out by giving some time today to Rep. Campbell, our vice chair, to give us a quick little overview of H597, H599, H609, and H610. I'm Representative Kathleen James from Manchester.
And I represent Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury.
Representative Richard Bailey, Lamoille 2. Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Jared Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Klepner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Loris William, Wyndham 2.
Representative Southworth, joining us online. Are you able to unmute or?
Yeah, Representative Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Great. Thanks for joining us remotely on short notice. Appreciate it. And in the room we have.
Dylan Zwicky, Leonine Public Affairs.
Great.
Emma Regan, the Crossing Group.
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel.
Super. Okay, so just as a reminder, the bill intros are just a quickish pitch from the sponsor. So a little bit about what's the problem, what's the proposed solution, and as we dive into various bills and really start taking testimony, you know, next week, a couple weeks from now down the road, that's when we would have Leg Council come in and do more of a formal walkthrough through the legislative language. So this is more of a, here's my bill, here's the problem I think it's trying to solve, and here's how I propose solving. All right,
Yep.
Scott.
So we're down here to the
Take the hot seat.
hot seat. I take advantage of when Mike's not here so I can spread out.
We need a pop-up table to extend another 8 inches here.
Just a little bit.
11-inch depth for a piece of paper for us.
Yeah. All right. So for the record, I represent Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury. I have a couple of bills to talk about. H597 is a proposal to request the Public Utility Commission to do a study and a report on an overlay, or sort of a map overlay between preferred renewable energy siting places preferred by municipalities or regional planning commissions. Overlay that with places where existing distribution or transmission infrastructure exists. The point being to identify sites that would be relatively easy and to develop and preferred by municipalities and RPCs. The preferred siting areas arise out of Act 174 from 2016 that provided for the opportunity for RPCs and municipalities to identify these sites, and if they did so and they updated their energy plans in accordance with PUC standards, that the municipalities and or PUCs would then be granted oh gosh, what is the term?
Substantial deference.
Substantial deference. Thank you. In any proceedings on granting CPGs or certificates of public good to projects that would build in these areas. That's substantial deference as opposed to whatever the other thing is. This is much less standing in those proceedings. It gives municipalities, RPCs, a lot more control over or a lot more input, a lot more control over these projects. And if they're being cited outside of these preferred siting areas, then it gives them more teeth to be able to prevent it. So by having the preferred sites, it's intended to channel development into these areas. And where these areas are near or adjacent to or inside rights of way for existing electrical infrastructure, it makes sense that we would try to highlight that in order to get more renewable generation built. So that's the purpose of that. It really, I think it arose whole cloth out of my own head. I don't know that anybody had suggested this, but I sort of hit upon the idea, and in the course of meetings this summer and fall with advocates and committee leadership, it just seemed like an idea that it's worth pursuing. So that's where it came from.
So Scott, would it essentially, I mean, from our conversations, what I took away, and I think this is a really interesting idea, it would essentially ask the PUC to compile a list, or maybe they already have a list of all the preferred sites,
Yeah,
and flag or highlight those that are located in areas that already are near to transmission or distribution lines.
yes.
In other words, these might be doubly preferred sites.
In effect, yes. Yeah, so the language is, PUC will study and report on how to expedite renewable energy development by examining municipal and regional preferred sites identified in the enhanced energy plans and their proximity to existing electric energy or energy distribution and transmission infrastructure. So that's what we're asking. There is no appropriation.
Okay, so I would imagine that if the infrastructure has constraints, that would also be indicated on that.
That is a good thing to add. Constraints.
That is a good thing to add. Yeah.
When we get to the village.
And then I think Rep. Putner had to stand up first, and then I see you, Rep. Southworth.
So who do you imagine is going to use this overlaid map of double preferred sites?
Well, merchant generators or utilities themselves. So we have sort of limited at the moment group net metering facilities to utilities, to the electric utilities. But there is an opportunity. Well, if such a site turned up that was adjacent to a lake, then it could be a net metering site as well. So, for example, affordable housing complex or something like that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's necessary, because it seems to me the utilities and the private developers of generating capacity do this research themselves and know where the preferred areas are for zoning and where the transmission and distribution lines are and where the substations are. And they talk to the utilities about the capacity and all this stuff. So it seems like the people you mentioned as who would use this, the utilities and the developers, kind of already, they didn't ask for this. Right? I mean, none of them called up and said, "Hey, this would be really helpful to us."
No, worth asking now.
Yes, it would be worth asking.
Rep. Southworth?
Well, Rep. Kleppner actually beat me to the punch on that one. I would echo what he stated. And it seemed redundant to me, because they would be doing their own research and would be less likely to try and put anything in an area that didn't have the infrastructure. Thank you.
Rep. Bailey?
Same follow-up to Rep. Putner and Rep. Southworth. Wouldn't the PUC ask these questions when they're looking to issue a certificate of public good?
Oh, well, they would. The purpose here is to be more proactive about it and identify these sort of doubly preferred sites, as Chair puts it, in advance, so that it would be highlighted. But it may be that it's unnecessary. I think we should hear from utilities and developers.
Rep. Torrey?
Yeah, I was thinking of an energy shed planning, which is across towns, and how this type of information would be helpful in that effort. I don't know that the PUC is the right organization to pull that off, or if it's something, I mean, I guess that could be part of the study, to figure out who, but I think that it would be useful for communities to have a tool like this, beyond developers, but for planners.
Mhm. Okay. Great.
And how do you envision these maps being kept current?
I don't envision that right now. This was, as I said, it was almost a short form bill. There is a clause added to statute, but it's really an idea to explore, and so we'll see. But I think these are all excellent questions.
Yeah.
Already. And we haven't even talked about the bill. I mean, gotten a run through from those councils or anything.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, Rep. Howland?
I think the utilities already have this mapping on their websites. And so enhancement to this is the regional planning commission's citing.
Right.
So to enhance to what the utility maintained, we heard from Velco about their need in upgrading.
Yes.
And so with a little bit of past experience in this, it's the large capacities of the system for the recent 20 megawatt plants that have been approved since we last met. And so they're large capacity plants that tend to be, and not the community type plants that I guess only utilities can develop. So there's some merit to an overlay to the utilities GIS system, or I don't know if it's on a state site or not. I would have to refresh how to find that.
Okay.
It occurs to me that several of these things might be addressed at once if there were a way to automate this, so that the maps lived online, and as the utilities updated their grids, it automatically updated the maps, and as regional planning commissions updated their zoning, it automatically updated.
Everything's automatically updated. Putting the world on autopilot right now. No, these are excellent questions already.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
next one.
Yeah, I think so. Next.
Next.
What is next?
H 599
Okay.
is the purpose is to allow for modifications to a net metering system without needing an updated certificate of public good if the change does not increase the capacity of the system to more than 25 kW. This originated actually out of my own experience contemplating adding to rooftop solar at my house. I have not nearly enough between that and membership in the community solar field to run 2 electric vehicles and 2 heat pumps. So I was attempting to fill up my barn roof with panels. And I learned that there's a limit on how much you can add to an existing CPG, the CPG being the one that I received when I put the original panels on my roof. And that CPG came with whatever the net metering adder or negative adder that existed at the time that I obtained the CPG. There's a limit to how much I can add before I trigger needing to get a new CPG that would then come with the current adder or negative adder. It's actually a much greater negative adder now than it was 3 or 4 years ago when I put those panels on my roof. And that limit is 5% of, if I add more than 5% of what I have in the original CPG or 15 kW, whichever is greater, then that triggers a new CPG. And therefore, going from the original adder, which is greater than the current adder. And so that would affect the economics of the whole project, obviously, if the adder is reduced or the negative adder is increased. So looking into that, I looked up this is in rule, what's called Rule 5100 in the PUC. And there is a section of that rule that specifically says what I said earlier, an amendment or series of amendments that increase the capacity of the net metering system by more than 5% or 15 kW, whichever is greater, will trigger the application of the most recently adopted siting and rec adjusters to the entire output of the amended net metering system. Recalling that last year we moved the ceiling for a sort of an automatic CPG just on application from I guess it was from 15 kW to 25 kW, and also recognizing that 25 kW is actually about what a household would need to run 2 electric cars and 2 or more heat pumps. It occurred to me that maybe 25 would be consistent to make 25 the trigger for a new CPG if you're adding to a system. So this bill proposes to make 25 kW the trigger
Instead of 5%.
instead of 5% or 15 kW added to an existing system. Does that make sense? Did I explain that?
I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep. Okay, questions about that? That does seem like a follow-on to some of the work we did last year, so I'm understanding where it fits in. Restory and then, and then I see you Rep Southwark. Mike, do you want to go first? Representative Southwark?
I can, sure. So would this additional kilowatts being added to the existing be included in the net metering? So basically you would be increasing the net metering allowance for that person?
No.
How would you differentiate what would be covered under the net metering and what wouldn't be?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So you would be allowing the totality of what the additional panels would be to be covered under the net metering?
Yes, well, it's all net metering, right?
The original CPG is for X amount of power, correct? And that was what was covered under the net metering, correct?
Right, but if you're adding to those panels, it's still net metering. It's just the question is whether the addition triggers a requirement to obtain a new CPG with a new what do they call it, the rec requirement.
Right, but what I'm getting at is that's adding power that is going to cost ratepayers more.
Yes, well, yeah, marginally,
but it's still going to cost more.
Right. I think we heard last year that net metering, the impact of net metering on electric rates generally is small, 2-3%, something like that. Is anybody?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still above what market rate is.
Well, it's above what wholesale rate is.
Right.
And
that's my concern, is just adding more cost to ratepayers. That's all.
Right. Okay. That's valid.
Thank you.
Rep Torrey?
My question's about what a modification entails. Does it, if you want to modify, do you have to get an update so your utility knows what's involved in modifying? If you want what's the process for modification?
I'm sure you have to be in touch with the utility. Yes.
But not.
And there's probably certain capacity constraints, but yes, you do have to it has to be coordinated with the utility. I don't know all the steps involved because this is what if you're not putting the panels on yourself, if you're going through a contractor, they handle all this for you. So,
Okay.
so I don't know all the details about that.
And then is there a fee at all for modifying the CPG?
I don't know the answer to that either. I don't think so.
There's something with a $200. Earlier, we saw something labeled about 100, 200 on another bill.
Oh, that was Representative Morrow's bill to increase the PUC fees. And I don't remember if one of them was to modify or whether that was for new residential
There was
solar.
categories for each.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it would
So
increase,
it's
your bill
existing, I think.
would increase the fees for modification as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
just,
Can I ask a general question, if anyone knows, what is the effect on the grid and or the utility of solar that's generated behind the meter and used behind the meter?
That is not a simple.
Yeah, that's what I was-
I just had that with TJ at lunch yesterday.
If it's being used as it's generated, those amps are not flowing back through the meter. They're flowing through your net. So you generate with your solar cells, those amps flow through your net metering, come to a connection called a bus. And from there, it either avoids your revenue meter for the utilities revenue meter, spins that meter backwards if you were flowing it back into the grid, or I don't think it would register that you're using that to run while you're operating. But in this case, he explicitly said he's doing his cars. He wants to do his cars, and let's assume you want to heat the house and not cool the house. Generally, you do that after the sun goes down. You want to heat your house in the off season, and when he gets home, he wants to charge his cars. So he wants to generate while the sun is out in the morning, backfeed the utilities using them as storage, and then draw it back at night. So I just did some quick calculations, and 5% of a 16 megawatt system is 800. If I did my calculation, so that's an addition of one panel is what you're limited presently to the 5% limit.
Well, or 15 kW.
The greater.
The greater.
Oh, you could do the greater. So if you had 10, you could add 5.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I was doing 5% of the lesser, so.
Yeah.
Well, but
Anyway, so the
Yeah.
utility will have to come in and talk about that. And in the WEC area, they were explicit in my later years of work of limiting to 5 kW because of the burden that net metering was putting on the rest of the co-op owners. They were getting more energy than they can use. There's a lot of pieces to this standard offer stuff and what these utilities are required to take at rates that are above what they're selling they're getting. I did a conglomeration of the projects. They're paying as much as 30 cents a kilowatt hour, 28 cents a kilowatt hour into the systems. And so these munis have to take their percentage of load, 1.something% of high power electric is percentage of growth. They have to take that, and they may not have had the growth, and they may have other obligations of procuring energy.
We're getting a little bit beyond.
But no,
Sorry.
but they,
I apologize.
anyway, we need to address this, and the utilities will have to come in and make their cases.
Yeah, if we move forward with the bill. Rep. Sevelia, just a reminder, these bill intros are, what I see is happening here at the beginning of the session is that we're assembling a salad basket of ideas.
A salad basket.
Thank you. Salad bowl. A salad bowl of ideas.
Right,
I like
Yeah,
that.
a grab bag.
Good idea.
Yeah, and so in my mind, I'm starting to try to make connections you know, like, okay, we've got a PUC, we've got an idea to talk about the PUC fees. I think we've got a net metering bill coming. We have single plant that we're going to hear about tomorrow. So, you know, I'm just trying to make connections in my mind between
Yeah.
topics that might be
Simple, easy.
related, that are
Controversial.
simple and easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rep. Sibilia?
Madam Chair, I did not have my hand up.
Oh, how weird.
I'm
Strange.
sure that I
I
probably
would say,
gestured.
it's not weird. Amelia does this all the
I
time. God, Brexit goes to an auction.
But the reason these intros are so important is that they surface questions, things the bill sponsor, you know, has thought about, not thought about. Where does this fit in? Where does this not fit in? You know,
And there may be connections to other bills.
connections to
That
other
we hear
bills.
about.
Yeah. And in my mind, I'm always thinking, all right, if we move forward with this one, there were some questions about this and that, so we're going to need to make sure we hear from X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Do we ever consolidate?
We do.
A bill?
Yeah. So, and that was another thing I was thinking about, and you don't need to do your own thing, but sometimes or often we could do a committee bill. And basically that means we start with a blank sheet and we all say, all right, we're going to do a committee bill and it's going to be, you know, 3 or 4 related topics. Each of the things in and of itself, you know, they kind of all hang together, or sometimes they don't even hang together. But we could, if there's interest, you know, we could at some point before crossover, or even you get a little extra time, don't you want
A committee bill can be submitted anytime, I believe.
Yeah,
No, there is a.
but it has to get to the Senate.
It has to get to the Senate, so there is a.
Yeah, but anyway, the answer to your question is yes. You know, we don't, if we like 3 related ideas, we don't necessarily have to move 3 bills. We could create a committee bill, put them all on the same plate, you know,
Or basket.
basket.
Right, I was
Or-
just looking, this is, yeah.
Salad basket, as
Still
I
a
like to
salad
call it.
basket per se, but the provisions necessary to this one affect another bill, and
Right.
and if you're the first one out, do you like problems on the other bill?
Yeah, so which is probably an argument for the point, for the approach you're bringing up, which is that we hear everything early, everything's kind of flying around. We've got a bunch of ideas circling the runway, and then when we feel like we've got a handle on all the things that are related and how they might impact each other, we could try to pull together one bill, you know, or not. So,
Lots of potential there.
yeah.
Next one,
Okay, next. Yep. What's next?
H609
Okay.
is about thermal energy networks. And this arises out of a request for the PUC report about thermal energy networks and what the appropriate regulation would be for them. So first of all, I guess we could, and the PUC gave us a report dated October 20th, 2025. This is in pursuant to Act 142 of 2024 that we heard about yesterday. Was it yesterday?
It was.
Or the day before, whenever it was.
And I'm just looking to see if that's posted.
The report?
Yeah, is it posted yet? Yes, on our reports tab. If you scroll down under Public Utility Commission, and I'll ask Joe or Alex to rename this if you can, but you'll see on Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, on our reports tab under Public Utility Commission, it says TENS Report 2025. So that thermal energy network report is posted. And Joe or Alex, if you guys get a minute, if you could just rename, people don't necessarily know what TENS is. So thermal energy, if you could just rename it, Thermal Energy Exchange Network Development Report. So folks who see that know what it is. So we do have that report on our website, and if we move forward with any bill related to thermal energy networks, we'll be sure to go over this report. So
Yes,
back to you,
sure.
Scott.
Right. Well, just a couple of things from that report that are useful. First of all, defining what TENS are. And Thermal Energy Exchange Networks is the official name. It's sort of abbreviated to Thermal Energy Networks, or TEN. TENS are defined as, quote, all real estate fixtures and personal property operated, owned, or used, or to be used for, or in connection with, or to facilitate a distribution infrastructure project that supplies thermal energy to more than one household, dwelling unit, or network of buildings that are not commonly owned. So that leaves out single unit situations where somebody's putting in a thermal energy, basically ground source heat pump for their own house or their own building. It also leaves out buildings that are in common ownership. That might be cooperatives or
Universities, yeah.
Universities, leaves those out. And another category that is left out is thermal energy networks that are owned by municipalities. So, for example, in Montpelier, there's a thermal energy network run by the chip plant across the street. So the commission was charged with coming up with a report on how to support the development of thermal energy networks and what regulations would be appropriate. And their just to cut to the chase, their recommendations were basically to add TENS to the permissible purposes for the establishment of a fire district, to create another category of eligible entities that could develop and operate a TENS, and exclude fire districts from commission regulation. So it'd be another exception to the types of TENS that fall under jurisdiction of PUC. And another point was to only require a public utility company, quote unquote, certificate of public good under appropriate statute to operate TENS for private networks not otherwise excluded from commission regulation. So these are privately owned, whether by a single person or by a company or a nonprofit.
And I'm sorry, quick back up to fire districts. Can you give an example of why a fire district would build a TENS?
Well, I see. They did talk about fire districts. It's not strictly fire, but fire districts also operate water network systems.
Right? Yeah.
Water systems. Yeah. So I think that was the thought.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just gonna add, because I was very excited to see fire district references. Another idea I was having. Fire districts are a great way for municipalities to team up on something. Because they have the ability to levy taxes.
Yes.
So it's a great tool for regional cooperative.
Yeah. So
endeavors within
cross
the
town,
Yeah.
multi-town municipalities. In fact, because the fire districts in municipalities, they can raise money. And let's see, they also had some other sort of technical changes that they recommended. Basically, they advocated for as light a touch regulation as possible in order to facilitate the development of TENS. And if there's further regulation that becomes apparent, then deal with it at that time.
Okay.
So they did recommend actual language for statute. And this bill just reflects the language requested by the PUC. We also, in the course of talking about this summer and fall, heard from, actually it was in this group or in another group that we heard from people who have been advocating for TENS for some time about questions they had about some of the PUC language. So we will hear more about that if we take up the bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scott, and I apologize. I've had some conversations with some of the advocates for this. I know that there's a town in my region that is interested in this. Can you remind me what is the problem this is trying to solve here?
Well, this, the PUC was asked to come up with a report recommending a level of regulation that would be appropriate for TENS and for facilitating TENS and regulating TENS. And so that's the genesis of the language that they suggested in their report, the statute language they suggested in the report. And that statute language is exactly what this bill includes, as far as I remember. Is that right? I think that's right.
John?
It's,
So the problem is it's a request that we made at the PUC. The legislature made at the PUC in Act 142 in 2024. And so we're actualizing their recommendations.
I'm trying to remember the problem we were trying to solve.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, Victoria
I'm gonna add
sounds
to
like,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was our PUC housekeeping bill. And at the time, we weren't sure, if we had to actually give the PUC authority to regulate, because it's not electric, it's not gas, it's different. So we weren't sure if, that needed to be addressed as we did, we had a bill that gave the municipalities the authority. And so the PUC suggested to us, we don't need to decide this now. Why don't we come back to you with any, thoughts? So that's why it became a report. So,
Okay.
Who just
Yeah.
the TENS report? I did. Did you?
yes, I think that was exactly it. They did say something in this report about, usually they're asked to regulate, monopoly utilities and this is not that. So what the story is kind of, I guess, the reason for requesting the report. Anything else?
there's no,
Yeah.
no provisions for the source of the thermal energy or prohibitions of the thermal energy, like somebody mentioned, the chip plant.
Could be chip, could be geothermal, I guess. Yeah, well, I think the question is how is this is a district heating system.
Right, but I don't foresee the outlay of a district heating system being thousands of feet between customers, more like hundreds of feet between
Yes,
customers.
yes.
And so the consolidation, so if you're talking about your little development, you don't want the road built, dug up 3 times for 3 different thermal companies coming down the road with hey, take mine. I mean, that's why they have the fire districts or one water company that they cover.
Exactly
Across the town line.
where this issue would intersect with it's
Yeah.
a public concern, right?
Well, but
Yeah,
and just one more thing to add is that Vermont Gas has done some thermal energy networks. So because they're a regulated utility, there was the question of, and they did it as a pilot, just what they would be able to do as their business model. So that was part of the thinking about
That's right.
And I think,
inviting the
You
PUC.
should have introduced this.
yeah,
Here.
well, and I
Fine, I
think,
support it.
am I remembering, Scott and or Dara, if we move forward with this idea, I actually feel like I'm now remembering that VT Gas that we would definitely want to have them come in to testify. They had something they wanted to see changed, or am I making that up? I feel like VT Gas had some comments on the report or wasn't
I
totally.
mean, informally, I spoke with Neil Lunderville.
Yeah.
To say, how do you feel about the report?
Yeah,
And got a positive response from him
okay.
at a conference, but that's.
I might be thinking of something else.
I do. Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Next one, last one. And this one's pretty easy, I guess. This is H610. Requesting creation of a community-based energy navigator program statewide, or it is at least an extension of a pilot. There currently exists a pilot. Well, first of all, an energy navigator is the idea is that there's a place for consumers to go to to help them figure out what efficiency programs, what incentive programs, what energy programs are out there that would be appropriate for them. And as we know from our conversations here over the course of the whole session last year, that there are a lot of programs. So it can be confusing for consumers to figure out what is appropriate for them to access. Addison County has an Energy Navigator program that they started as a pilot, and this bill would, as I recall, extend the pilot. I think you told me, Dora, to Rutland County. Although it does, and I should say also that this bill is a companion bill to the bill introduced by Senator Liz Hardy on the Senate side, and is in fact verbatim her bill. So actually, we should have her right here to talk about it. But Rep. James and I decided that we would introduce a companion bill in order to facilitate getting us through the process as quickly as efficiently as possible. So this bill would ask for set up a program and ask for a report from Efficiency Vermont. So in collaboration with an existing community-based Energy Navigator program, such as the Climate Economy Action Center of Addison County, EVT shall design a Vermont community-based Energy Navigator program that will provide in-person and remote coaching services to residential consumers and communities statewide. And there are Energy Navigator programs in neighboring states, in Massachusetts and also in Connecticut, that have set up systems for providing these services, and that this legislation asks to consult. And actually, I think it's Connecticut has a sort of a whole website set up and everything that the Addison County program makes use of, so that in fact they probably contract or subscribe to it or something like that. And that may be the quickest, easiest, and least expensive way to do something like this. So that's the purpose of consulting with them. So the program is intended to provide guidance to residential consumers, which includes homeowners, landlords, and renters, particularly those with low and moderate incomes, to better understand and navigate energy efficiency and clean energy investment options, and advise on grants, rebates, financing, and other assistance programs, prioritizing opportunities, locate contractors, and analyze contractor recommendations, and provide basically hands-on coaching. And then provide ongoing state funding to support the operation. And this bill would provide state funding to support the ongoing operations. So there is an appropriation in this bill. This is the only bill of the four that has an appropriation. It's $165,000 total from the general fund. 15,000 to EVT, just to design the program and or actually to do the report, I guess, and 150,000 to work with for EVT to work with the Climate Economy Action Center in Addison County to develop the design.
Expand the Rutland, I think.
Yeah.
So I can add only a titch of background to elaborate on Rep. Campbell's intro. A bunch of us went to the VCAN conference in October, and VCAN that's the Vermont Energy and Climate Action Network, and it's an umbrella organization for all of Vermont's town energy committees. So I don't know if folks here, my town has a really active energy committee, a lot of communities do, and so this is a group that brings together all the town energy committees to share information and share best ideas, and they do a conference once a year. And there was a lot of interest at that conference in this Energy Navigator program that's been up and running in Addison because it's been successful and it helps Vermonters get kind of individualized, personalized information about, I live in this leaky old farmhouse, or, I'm thinking about heat pumps. Are there incentives? Would this be a good idea for my home? And so it's like coaching, basically, or consulting. And so, it's an interesting idea. It does have money on it this year, which is interesting.
Yes.
So I think that Scott and I wanted to put forward the idea on the House side, especially because so many folks from VCAN reached out to us and asked if we would just get the idea out there. If we're super interested in it, we could have Senator Hedi in, and we could have the Addison County folks in and learn more about the program that's up and running. Or we could wait and see if the Senate gets it out, because it is primarily Senator Hardy's bill. We could just wait and see if it makes it over here. Yeah.
Do you know if some of these services are available through Brock, or Rutland and Bennington County Action Committee?
That's a
with
great
this,
question. And
that they had, Brock had a individual that was recognized at their annual meeting who was very energy targeted.
do you know, Rep. Howland, that is a great question. In the interactions I've had with Brock, I thought that those services were largely targeted at income-eligible, low-income Vermonters.
Yes, it's certainly.
Living in the Brock service region. This would be available to anybody.
Okay, but so maybe just a spin off of a community action, a fair type situation that Brock was there. But that was mentioned particularly with the heat pump retirement benefits.
Oh, okay.
Heat pumps, and so yes, he may not have been advising because of income, but just with the general knowledge.
But that might be a more efficient way of expanding it.
If they,
Well, yeah.
if he had, right, if that person with that knowledge helped that branch spun out with a portion of his time, because if you're only talking 150,000, you're not, there was that request of
50.
Yeah, it's work program design, basically.
but there are no man hours, and there's no employee hours in this.
Well, yeah, I don't think that money is for operations.
So there may be.
I thought it was to expand the Addison County program to Rutland County as an expansion of the pilot.
For FY27, 150,000 to the Climate Economy Action Center to collaborate with EVT on the Energy Navigator program design, continue to develop its community-based Energy Navigator resources, programming, and expertise, and support the expansion of its Energy Navigator program to a neighboring county. That is the Rutland connection.
Perhaps I'm not supposed to mention Rutland County out loud, but I thought that was what they were I thought that was where they were interested. But it's, I know my name is on a lot of these bills too, and as a way of just putting an interesting idea on our radar, or a successful program on our radar that's currently operating in a limited way, in one county.
Yeah, and I like the report aspect because I think we are realizing we have a lot of different programs, and there's kind of a need for coordination for maximum impact. And I just wanted to add that the Department of Public Services is going to be looking at like energy assistance and the whole realm with that lens of coordination. So that will be good when we have someone from the department in to kind of discuss that and maybe mention this, because it seems like this could also be woven into the report they're working on. So coordination is the name of the game right now.
Yes. Coordination, not duplication.
Right.
So what is it EVT needs to do? I mean,
Well, they're an effective consultant. They would write the report and they have a lot of experience, obviously, in this whole realm. And
But aren't they
running
getting out of their purview, isn't it? I mean, they're supposed to be doing electrical savings, not all the other stuff.
Well, they have thermal programs as well, that are funded.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm trying to figure out why they're in that business when we have the OEOs that should be doing all that stuff.
Well, the OEOs are limited to low income, so 80%.
EVT serves all of Vermont.
Yeah, and EVT can provide services to moderate income and market rates, they're called. So yeah, they don't. The reason why they're involved is because there isn't anybody else that does this really on a.
But if Addison's already got it done, why do they need to get in there and do whatever they're gonna do? I mean, are we gonna use the Addison?
Well, I think these are good questions to ask when we pick up the bill, right? Because they're certainly valid points. As somebody mentioned a minute ago, maybe the community action agencies, maybe expanding their role into non-low income for this particular service might be a more efficient way to do this.
One thing I don't know, that kind of goes to Rep. Bailey's question is, it's been a while since I interacted with Efficiency Vermont because I did my weatherization so long ago. To the point where actually we heard recent testimony that it needs to be revisited every 10 to 15 years. And I was like, oh, God. But do we know, like, can you call Efficiency Vermont but they won't send somebody to your house?
Well, they have the contractor network.
Right.
They have some online auditing. But what I think one of the things this would get at that doesn't currently exist for the average person is the roadmap. The homeowner roadmap.
Right.
The order of operations, because we don't tend to do everything at once. And I think when you're working with Efficiency Vermont and on a discrete project that you get hooked up with contract,
a rebate for,
you don't necessarily get that roadmap.
Okay.
So I think that this is an ongoing relationship, and that's why it's so community based. And right now you can pay someone to be an energy coach. This is kind of it sounds like it would be a little more accessible and maybe less costly to have that hand holding for the long term on your overall household energy management.
Yeah, well, and there's certainly that dimension to it, which is important. But even just initial contact with these programs, or initial contact with where do I go? Where do I start? Just from my experience at 3D Thermal, we found that so we had incentive money to offer to landlords, and that was usually what got their interest and got them in the door. But what they found was actually the most useful service, the most important service was that handholding. Most people are just not conversant with all the issues of doing energy upgrades. And in fact, many landlords, especially small landlords, don't really are intimidated by a construction project. So helping owners through the process and giving them unbiased advice or advice that is biased towards helping them reduce their costs and improve the quality of their buildings was really valuable, and even more valuable than the money, really. So this is not exactly that, but it is related to it in that it's providing consumers with. So what do I do? In answer to the question, what do I do? That seems like the value of me.
Great. Scott, thank you. Say surprise text at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
What are you doing this morning? All right, Representative Sibilia. Stay in current. Alrighty. Representative Sebelius, thank you. You are H5. I'm trying to see across the room 593. No, yes.
This is,
Yeah.
yeah, 593. This is, members will remember our hearing this fall. And, discussion from Belco and the department about, long-term study looking at interconnection between, the ISO New England grid through New York to, now it's the
Pennsylvania.
PJM grid. And I was concerned about that because of what's happening in that PJM territory and how fast things are evolving with large loads, including data centers and other entities. And so this bill.
Sorry, just to stop right there.
Yeah.
I just want to remember some of that testimony and some of that conversation a
Yes.
little bit better. Because I
Yes.
know that you've also then since done a lot of reading and
Yes.
research.
A lot of reading and research.
So the idea
Yes.
is that currently the ISO New England grid is discreetly managed.
Yes.
And there's a pitch or a proposal or an idea to interconnect to this neighboring
Yes.
Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia,
New Jersey.
And
New Jersey grid.
up into,
Well,
yeah.
And
it's connected now, isn't that?
that is my question. You know, it's not like our grid, and I know we took testimony on this last year and I apologize, but you know, it's not like all power lines stop. So when we say we're thinking about interconnecting, what does that actually mean?
So this is,
Or do we need to just get testimony?
I think we need to get more testimony.
Okay.
And so,
This is about agreements to buy and sell load or power.
yeah, this is about the availability of power. And so it is my understanding from the research that I have done. It's my experience that the transmission folks and energy planning folks are pretty sober, serious people who look a long way out. And that this is something that has been thought about for a number of years to solve some problems that we have in the New England grid, where we're really constrained and we have a high winter peak. And so in PJM, for example, they have a lot more renewables that could be helpful in addressing our winter peak. That's about it's about as much as I'm going to be able to say about potential benefits, and I would defer to a lot of other experts, but there was a sense in New England that we should be looking at how can at more interoperability with this other neighboring regional transmission organization. And that is something that they've been thinking about and talking about and working toward for a long period of time.
It adds flexibility.
Yes, most of you know.
You said say again.
Adds flexibility.
Flexibility.
Okay.
To
Yes.
ability to manage.
Load.
Load.
Okay.
Yes. Most of you are probably aware, like we are seeing pretty significant dynamic changes in demand for power from data centers and in a way that is not matching up with these, at least from my perspective, with these long-term planning, sober planning things. It's kind of getting ahead of that and changing things faster than maybe is anticipated. So a lot of the summer work that I have done, I've been to conferences with Rep. Torrey and others. I work on some committees in NCSL. I've heard a lot of concerns from other legislators in the PJM territory about what is happening there. And so you'll recall I was concerned when I heard this in our hearing, like, ooh, we should really understand what that means and how that might impact our grid, this interoperability. And Maria was there, and this is working with Maria, a concept of how to just take a pause and make sure that we are doing our due diligence when these type of connections are made. So talking with TJ, very informally, he said, I'm not sure how many times we will make these types of connections. I mean, again, these are really big deals that take a long time, a long thought. But this proposal changes in Title 30. Under Section 2, it talks about the Department of Public Service and what powers they have. And so this proposal adds to the end to letter small g in their powers and duties, that any of these types of agreements that were going to be entered into by the department, interregional transmission projects and interconnections, would be subject to PUC approval, which is a public process. And so, as opposed, Maria and I talked about the legislative sign off, which it seems very ill-advised for a lot of reasons, including, our level of knowledge, the timing, et cetera. So I think it would be important for us to make sure we understand for Vermont ratepayers, how this may be helpful. That was the question that I asked in that hearing, how will this benefit Vermont ratepayers? And so I think it would be good for us to understand. And there's a tremendous amount of work that has been done by the department and the transmission utility and others. So I would just like us to know more about this.
Yep. And testimony on this, I'm thinking ISO, the department, PUC,
Velco.
Sorry, question.
Yeah.
Maybe NCSO, Madam Chair.
Well, I was wondering.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea from NCSL yet if other states have done this?
There are interconnections that happen all the time.
No, I mean, required.
I don't know.
Okay.
Who makes agreements for sort of trading power across ISOs? Is that done by the ISOs?
I do not have enough detail about how that is done, but it's led by the administration here through the Department of Public Service.
Right. But I guess what I'm wondering is,
and we are a small piece of getting brought along for the ride.
Yeah. I mean, I'm imagining that agreements for the back and forth of trading back and forth of power would be done at the regional operator level rather than at the state level or at the utility level.
Yeah. I think the demand for power and both from these large users and the need to move towards beneficial electrification and away from fossil fuel, it's really incumbent upon us to better understand these processes. Yeah. And I think these are really good questions.
Yeah.
And that's us doing our due diligence, sort of understanding how these decisions get made, particularly because of how quickly things are changing right now.
No, I completely agree. Great.
I recall that one of the concerns was that our rates might go up because of all the new data center load in PJM.
So my questions were all based on lack of knowledge and concern because of what I had heard from other legislators in that territory and what they were seeing. We've seen warnings of potential brownouts in the PJM. They had an excess of power. And now with all of the data centers and other, it's a very kind of dynamic situation. So yes, my concern is how will this impact us? I don't know. It may be really beneficial. And I've had a lot of conversations and in the off session trying to learn. And I don't think that it is clear yet that we know. I think there's been a request for information that was put out, and I believe those, I don't know that the results have been published, but I believe they're under consideration and due to be published or disclosed.
Thank you.
And Scott, I was just looking up what PGM covers. It is not just Pennsylvania, Jersey,
No,
and Maryland.
it's up in the-
It is
Midwest.
Virginia,
Virginia.
West Virginia, parts of North
Yeah.
Carolina, parts of Kentucky,
Yeah.
Ohio,
Yes.
parts of Indiana,
Yeah.
parts of Illinois, including Chicago.
One of the things that I've learned that's interesting, I don't know that it's relevant to this, but in Virginia, that's where there's some pretty major
Yes,
internet connections that
yes.
cross. And so that's a really, I guess, a desirable place for a lot of data centers, which require a lot of power.
Seems like something that I'm really interested in, at the very least, making sure we understand.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that there's a lot of play right now at FERC,
Mhm.
federal.
Mhm.
So that they can control what happens at the regional transmission level. So it would be nice to get a little like transmission update that it goes up a level too, given where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could use a significant transmission update, given what's going on right now and the need for the, grid to continue to modernize and our increasing needs for power.
So currently, if New England ISO's in trouble with load, we get, for what you were alluding to, the strange for winter, we currently get that flow from New York to back us up.
We get a lot of natural gas that is pretty volatile. And for most of our neighboring states, that can have pretty dramatic impacts on the price of power. Vermont is less so because we are vertically integrated, and our regulatory frame is such that it encourage less spot market purchasing
Right,
and
right.
more long-term power purchasing, which means we're more stable. We're still high because that's what the mix is on the grid and what's available on the grid.
But when you originally said that we're constrained in New England,
Mhm.
and if we get constrained, where are we picking up that power to?
Natural gas.
New York
market.
or PGM? Are we?
So we're going over my head, and let's have the experts come in and really talk more. This is exactly the conversation I think it's important for us to understand.
They targeted this in on our October meeting. When they came in and said that daylight hours were exporting to Canada. So we have a tie with Hydro Quebec and Canada. We get power from New York. So what I envision this is 3-cell battery. We're now putting a third cell as the Pennsylvania to share, but to share Pennsylvania's load when they're not needed. So those got to come from, power's got to get generated somewhere. But the flow to the bulb at the top, where we're the bulb, and we have the batteries in series. But that the implication is here is what are the cost risks? What are the, because of Southern utilities, the Boston area, that VEG was in here and said, I spoke to him about gas generators, it's a 7-year lead time, and they don't have, Vermont Gas doesn't have the capacity presently, not enough room in their pipe. So but the Boston area is actually importing bottled gas from other sources during the winter peak because it's used so much for heating. And also used for.
So I
We
think,
can explore it. We
yeah,
can explore it.
yeah, so I think a really complicated issue. So next steps on this, if we move it, would be to understand the issue enough
Mhm.
that we can make an informed decision about, because the heart of the bill really
Mhm.
is that we understand this complicated issue enough to make an informed decision about whether, if these things are going to happen, whether the PUC should add a level of public oversight, transparent, a level of approval that doesn't currently exist. So instead of the department, you know, inking these agreements, that the PUC would have to also take a look at that and approve. That's what we'd be changing.
And no shade on the department.
No.
At all, just because this is all moving so quickly, it feels like and maybe this is not the thing to do, but I really think we have to better understand this.
Yeah.
And Madam Chair, I have spoken with, the department, with Velco, with ISO New England. I've spoken with some other large, renewable generators, offshore wind folks, just to better understand this. And I think hearing from Velco and ISO and the department as a kind of start would be really helpful. I think Rep. Torrey's note about the FERC rule, I'm sure that Velco would probably bring that up as well.
Okay. Okay. Got us adding things to the salad basket. I am going to make that a phrase.
I'm gonna make you a salad basket.
All right. So,
Plan ahead for iceberg lettuce.
yeah. All right. So that was a good catch up on some of the bills. Like I said, we have Rep. Southworth on Tuesday introducing 601. I'll get on the schedule for introducing 600, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we got a bill today. So we're doing okay. All right. And we're back at 1:00 to close the loop on our request about single plant last year. And then we're done for the day after our 1:00 testimony. And we're done now till 1. So we can go off live, and thanks everybody. Thanks again, Rep.